We'll go ahead and get started. We have a roll call, please.
Chairman Blair Stickler.
Here.
Vice Chair Jean Enright. Present. Secretary and Treasurer Peyton McCarthy.
Here.
MacArthur. Commissioner Wayne Richards.
Here.
Commissioner Catherine Waldron.
Here.
Executive Director Manuel Almira.
I'm here.
Court Counsel Greg Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Okay, can we please rise for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, has everybody had time to go over the minutes from the last meeting? And if so, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Commissioner Waldron, second, Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries 5-0. Additions, deletions, presentations, announcements. Shalmira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have a presentation by Michael Busha, Executive Director, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. We'll discuss the Inland Port Initiative and an update on our interlocal agreement. Can we please bring him up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, members of the council.
Yes.
Everybody else for having me up here. I'll try to be brief. A couple of things. Bring you up to date on Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council initiative that we've been working on for a while, then we stopped and we started again. I know that might sound like the Port Interlocal, but no, this is the US 27 project. It's a rail and highway project to add double tracking along, which there's no rail now, along 27, and maybe from instead of 4 lanes, 6 to 8 lanes. This is something that was studied by the Department of Transportation, District 4 and District 6, back in 2010, 2011. They finished the report in 2013. It was a planning and conceptual engineering project, which shows that the notion of doing that, there weren't any fatal flaws with doing that, and then it just died. People lost interest, other things were going on, the recession. It's not a cheap project, it's about $1.5 billion, about 500 of that's rail, about 750 is road, and that's to extend basically, what is it? It's to extend the road and the rail from the Port of Miami through US 27 up to South Bay and beyond. I didn't know this before we started working on this, but US 27 goes all the way up to South Bend, Indiana, so it doesn't stop. It is truly a US highway. Look, what we've done so far and why everybody should care about it is, the ports and the airports certainly should care about it because of movement and capacity of freight, both export and import. We don't find better ways to get freight down and out and freight in and out of Florida and distribute it across Florida. I would suggest to you that the money that's been invested in the ports and airports is not being used as efficiently as it could. The coastal local governments and the marine industry should care about this project, I think, because the trucks and the trains that currently use all our coastal roads and rail, I mean, it's getting kind of congested. That's one of the reasons we're having difficulty getting access to the ports. And also passenger rail becomes a little better option, I think, if some of the freight and some of the other kinds of traffic gets moved off the coast and uses the 27 corridor. Now the Glades folks should really care about this because transportation, at least the Regional Planning Council believes out there, is the key to a bigger, broader economy for the Glades. And we're talking about these intermodal logistic facilities or centers. I honestly believe, in my opinion, that those facilities aren't feasible without this kind of transportation out there. So this project, I really believe, needs to come first, which is why we're kind of re-looking at this. And I wrote down here, why is this a good thing? One of the reasons is one of my board members really thinks it's a good thing. So he got us going on this. Commissioner Ed Fielding from Morgan County. He wanted to be here today, couldn't make it. Like I said, there was that study that was done which shows it's feasible. In 2016, the Huron Palm Beach County NPO had decided that it's a strong enough idea to put in their 2040 plan. We have these issues with the New River Bridge openings because of more freight, more passenger service being proposed by Brightline. And also, Indian River and Martin County are in the middle of quite a conflict with Brightline and FEC. The good news is we had our first meeting. There's other reasons we should be doing this, but just a sidebar. We had our first meeting, and Bob Ledoux, I think he's the director of facilities for FEC, came all the way down to Jacksonville to join us. And he's very interested in this, and I'll get to that in a minute. The biggest reason for them is their intermodal facility that they built near the airport. FEC built one. And believe it or not, they built mainly refrigeration for grapes. And if I asked you why grapes, what would you say? Why are we doing grapes?
Wine.
Why? Because that's either the first or second largest seller in Walmart, one of their biggest customers. And the only other folks who do it are in Chicago. They wash the grapes, they refrigerate them in Los Angeles. I think they do a little in Philly, but pretty sure those are the two big ones. So they captured the market. It's one of the reasons some of the interest was lost in some of these intermodal facilities. These rail companies are talking to their vendors, and they did one themselves down there. So, there's a new administration also in DC, and if and when they get to the infrastructure, we had Congressman Mast aid, and if they get to the infrastructure replacement that they want to get to and the renovation and the new stuff, they really like this project, and so does Alski Hastings' office. He likes this project, but if and when that does happen, we've got to get a little further along in planning, design, and engineering on the US 27 project, or we're going to be left behind. I know just in talking with the ports that in 10 years or less, Manny, you guys are, there's capacity issues that are needed for that. The Port of Miami, I guess they spent about $1 billion on improving that. The 2016 WRDA bill, the Water Resource Development Act bill, which talks a lot about water resource facilities and infrastructure. I think Port Everglades was named for $300 or $400 million to improve Port Everglades. So we have all this stuff happening, and there's a little bit of a concern about transportation, getting stuff in and out. The trucks when they can get down there, but can be back out. You know what the congestion's like south of West Palm. So we need another way to get around, and they aren't building any new I-95s, and at $20 or $30 million a mile for new lanes, you're not going to see much more. So what have we done so far? Well, we've had one meeting. We just had one meeting to sort of gauge some interest in whether or not this is a good idea or not. And there's just really a small sampling of stakeholders, and we just wanted to test the idea. And I really want to thank the port, and I want to thank Manny for allowing us to meet here, sort of a central location. So I really appreciate that. We had Congressman Mast aid here, we had Martin County staff and Commissioner Fielding. The NPO was here, the FEC was here, Bob Ledoux, FDOT was here, and the port was here helping also. And it was pretty well received. The DOT had no idea how much interest there still was in this project. They're off doing all kinds of other things. Like I said, this project's very expensive. It's not in their work program, so they're not really pushing it. The FEC needs it. They're not going to pay for it, but either is FDOT. FDOT doesn't fund railroads. They fund operation and maintenance, but they don't fund the railroads. They don't build it. FEC is very interested in getting involved. And tomorrow I go before my board to get authorization to continue these kinds of meetings of small stakeholders. I'm not interested in doing any giant forums or anything. I just want to get a sampling of a few folks from around the region, and we're talking about this next meeting. I don't know when it's going to be. We'll definitely let the port and your director know. The Transportation Commission person from your district, the one who oversees DOT, Beth Kegel, I'm going to see if she can make it. The Glades constituency is interested. Sugar is certainly interested, Florida Crystals and others. They already have the site with land use. It's approved. Ports and the airports to the south, the Broward TPO, the Miami MPO, and Alski Hastings office wants to be involved in the next one. Also, FP&L met with Ed Fielding and a person from my staff. They are very interested in it because of gas and electrical transmission possibilities along 27, which again, I don't know how this affects employment in the Glades, but when you have FEC, you have FP&L and others interested in this level of transportation improvement, and it really terminates at the lake, and then there's a few alternatives for rail that go to the east and a few that go to the west. I mean, I think it benefits everybody. The Glades, coastal communities, the ports and airports. It's just a piece of transportation that's missing, I think, sort of a central rail corridor for Florida. So, the one thing that's come up, because one of my board members is a Martin County Commissioner, is that he's interested certainly in looking at Indiantown as another location for an ILC. But I don't know where it goes. I mean, Everglades is doing something and they're doing their thing over there. And the Crystal site already has land use. Martin County, there's no land use for it or anything. But he's pushing hard to not just to have the ILC, but also to continue the rail, not so it goes to Winter Haven or Lakeland, which would happen if it went around the west side, but straight to Orlando, so, and the airport. So, I mean, that would require you right away or using the turnpike right away to get further north. But he's got big ideas about this, and selfishly it helps Martin County and the coastal counties to remove some of that freight traffic off. But he's also looking out for Indiantown and basically the Glades communities as well. So I don't know where it goes, but I can tell you one thing: without this project, I don't think those projects stand a good of a chance, and the Glades will continue to struggle. So unless we get better transportation out there. So that's that part of the presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. Is that okay? I'm happy to answer questions.
I've got one
I'll
question.
tell you what I can. I don't know.
Yeah, well, did you mention the dollar amount?
Yeah, anywhere between it was between 1 and 1.5. It was about 490, 460 for the rail, and the remainder, the 750 or so, was for the road. There's environmental issues out there. Now, the good news is DOT owns all the right-of-way. In some cases, 400 feet of right-of-way. The problem is some of it's very, very wet. You know, it's right near the Everglades. So they didn't identify any fatal flaws. They thought they could overcome a lot of it. But
So what's the total?
anywhere between, I'll tell you, it's between $1 billion and $1.5 billion to do this project. So,
A lot of money.
yeah, it is. So, well, the feds are talking about throwing $1 trillion at infrastructure, but
Right.
that's across the country. So,
Bridges. And
yeah.
I just want to make a comment that for years, we've always been on target, and whenever we talk about the inland port, or anything ever happened when it was concerning rail, the port has always said, hey, it should be on 27. And it looks like someone has agreed with us that rail needs to go out there and not just flood the harbors of the East Coast. So I'm very happy to hear that they're looking at 27, because a lot of good things can happen, even if the inland port ever decide to materialize at all. I mean, the rail out there, we already have it, and it's good for all of us, and it goes all the way up. And like you said, that's excellent. If it can ever be done. I mean, the money is astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah,
It would probably be way after my time and all of us, if that ever happens.
Chairman, I have a few comments. Can you talk a little bit about tomorrow's meeting? I've got a letter here that Commissioner McKinley, County Commissioner McKinley's not going to be able to be there, but she specifically expressed her support for the US 21 project. Can you talk a little bit about what's going to happen tomorrow?
The reason for that is, the reason I've been an executive director for 35 years at the Regional Planning Council, I hope, because I know before I go off on some mission to do something, I ask for their permission first. And that's really what tomorrow's about. I want to continue this effort. We had this first meeting. I just wanted to see how it went. And I'm going to bring this item to the council just to let them know what's going on and where we are with this, and get their authorization to move forward with other meetings, to get, poll other stakeholders, bring the Glades community in, bring the Southern folks in, and find out what they think about it. And if enough people like this idea, I think DOT, because it's not in their work program,
Well,
I'm hoping it will
Well, I'd like to
blossom.
clarify that, because I think there's some confusion, because I was at the intro this morning, and it's in their strategic intermodal system
Yeah.
for the next 25 years.
It's in their
It's in there, it doesn't mean it's funded, but it's definitely their US 27 rail.
It's just not in their work program to do the PD, and the planning, design, and engineering report that would be needed to move this to the next level. And there's no further work when we were at the meeting here at the port. They said they're not doing anything else on this unless they're instructed, unless something changes. And so we're trying to be that something that changes their sort of trajectory on this thing, so we actually just relight the project.
Yeah, I feel like in Palm Beach County, at least, and obviously, I don't speak for everybody, but there's a lot of support for it to be out there in the plans, so.
Yeah, so that's what it's for. I need their authorization to keep going, and I'm hopeful that they'll give it. We got that nice letter from Vice Mayor McKinley, so that was real nice to get that. I didn't know how she even felt about it.
No, she's a
I
big
had talked.
proponent of it, so.
Yeah, so we're kind of flying out there,
I
so.
mean, I wouldn't think there's anybody in Palm Beach County that was against something like that.
No.
But just, well, maybe a few, but the real, it's just the money, even to do the plan or even.
Yeah, the PG&E, I don't know what that costs. I mean, there's folks here who might know, but that's not gonna be cheap either. But actually constructing it, through the wilderness, basically, a
Right.
lot of it is.
Chairman, do we have anybody going to that meeting tomorrow from?
Carl Big.
Carl's.
Oh, yeah, Carl said he wanted. Yeah, there he is. All right.
But
What is time?
Michael,
Yeah.
when we spoke about this at our last meeting, the impression that I received, and I think that my colleagues received, was that the discussion about a intermodal logistics center in Newport, Martin County, was sort of driving this. Your presentation did not go along those lines. Your presentation just now, as I interpret it, is this is really a rail study for the I-27 corridor. And oh, by the way, there's a Martin County commissioner
Yeah.
that's pushing.
Yeah.
That's different than what we heard last time. So I want us to understand the dynamics there. How much is that driving this I-27 discussion?
The initial discussion was driven by that one commissioner. I mean, he called me, he said, look, we need to get going on this, let's just see what goes on. I said, okay, we'll do this one meeting and see what happens. So to be fair, his initial push was, part of it, was to look at that Indiantown site, not just for an ILC, but also for an airport. And then continue, the third piece was continuing the rail north of Indiantown, all the way up to Orlando. So he had big ideas about that. His other motive behind this was also to help the Glades, but I guess it's the third motive is to reduce the amount of freight trains running along the coastal, not just rail, but rail, of course, but the turnpike and I-95 as well. So there'd be some more capacity for humans. And it would be better for passenger rail. He's a Martin County
So,
commissioner.
and you did indicate that was his initial impetus.
Yeah.
This board has been very clear to the extent that we have some level of influence. This board has been very clear that we wish to support activities in the Glades. And I want to say that again. So I realize that we're not driving this train on non-existent traffic on 627, but we want to be very clear that every time we talk about this, we're interested in supporting the Glades. So you heard it today, you'll hear it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess to her, you mentioned US 21. Oh, you mentioned, okay, you said 21. Okay. I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
US 27.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
we go interlocal, and then we have one card.
Just real quickly on the interlocal to update you on the efforts to amend the original 1996 interlocal agreement between the Port of Palm Beach and Riviera Beach. This effort started back in June, really, of 2015, and I think it was even before that, kind of prompted by some legal and regulatory concerns that were being shared between Riviera and the Port. And a lot of that was related to zoning and business licensing, and uses, permitting, site plan approval, building inspections, you name it. There was a long list, and even stormwater issues were being discussed. So laws have changed. The comp plan has changed over Riviera a little bit. The Port Master Plan is now in the Palm Beach County Comp Plan, so, you know, the communication though had broken down. And the thinking was if we could get the two boards together, the Port Council and the City Council together, then maybe there'd be a way to relook at this agreement and at least, I guess, redefine kind of the rules of engagement on how we're gonna work together as the city and a port. Lucky enough, frankly, to have the city, or be in a city like Riviera Beach. And so there was a joint workshop that was held on June 9th. I have copies of the report that came out of that we finished about 3 weeks later. It came out in June. And the boards met, and there were two basic things that came out of that. But there was an agreement, which was fundamental, that, yeah, we still do want to have an interlocal agreement. We still want to sort of define how we're going to behave with each other, and work with each other, and get opportunities together with each other. And the second one was sort of defining the scope of the agreement. I think that was done. So with that finished, we went what was good, what was bad about it, so we did that. And then after March, you know what happens. In Riviera, there's an election. So there was this big period of uncertainty, because also during that time, really between March of 2016 and November, there was a change in this. The city manager left, the city attorney left, the community development director. All these key individuals who were involved in this were gone. There was a bit of a leadership void there. That didn't matter. We continued meeting with the port together with Ruth a couple times, and then with Danny once. So we had a series of 3 meetings really between, I want to say between, write it down here. No, maybe I didn't. It doesn't matter. It was really later 2016, all the way up through maybe even January 17 was the last time we sat down. We were again talking about the draft and what's in it for the port. I can get to that in a minute. Finally, they hired a city manager, on May 20th or March 20th. He was a good guy, Jonathan Evans. I met with him just on April 17th on Monday. He promised that he would let us give a little presentation to the city council just to see what they want to do. How they want to complete this. Either they walk away from it, or we restart it, or we look at the draft. I mean, we've gone back and forth with a few different drafts. I got a lot of notes. I haven't finalized anything. And we could present that to both boards maybe at another joint meeting. But they have to decide what they want to do. They're just getting their feedback on the ground. But there's some good things in it for the port. I mean, it recognizes the new land to the south of the port. That's its port. It offers an opportunity for a piece in the northwest quadrant where the bridge comes down on the north side. Was it like a 4-acre piece for parking, Manny, between 11th and 10th? Suggests the port overlay zoning code, so the city isn't picking and choosing different industrial codes to apply to the port. There is a port overlay that lets the port be a port. Waiver from the city's stormwater utility fees and liabilities, since a lot of the water that comes out of that southern Riviera Beach Heights area and runs through the port, and you take the discharge and you take the responsibility. It even suggests certain port uses are okay between 10th and 11th as long as it's coded. And I could never figure out why the port couldn't do certain things there, but if another industrial user came in and a commercial user came in and followed the code, I think that they could do it. What they didn't want to see is, no offense to this tropical representative, I just met him this morning, is that they didn't want the big trucks, up against the, 11. But it also clarifies permitting, site planning, inspections, things like that, who's responsible for this, and hopefully resolve some of these issues for you guys, and something with sunset provision in there, and a communications provision in there. But I'll know more in June, and I'm happy to come back. I'll let you know what's going on after we meet with the city and see how they want to proceed. I'm sorry for going on.
Yes, any questions?
That's the other.
Okay, we have a Gerald Ward wanting to speak.
Good afternoon, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway in the great city of Riviera Beach. you have this as two items effectively, but starting with the Inland Port Initiative, if you really pick up on the driving force of Treasure Coast, you find that the Inland Port facility is being driven for Indiantown. We also have at the legislature incorporation as a municipality of that area so that they get different land use and driving forces than the overall county MOTRA that has been for the last 25 years making Martin County probably the worst of the 67 counties to develop in. So I would tell you that if you've driven US 27 from Belle Glade to Miami lately, it is an amazing infrastructure that has much potential for getting rail traffic off of FEC from the ports of Lauderdale and Miami and other traffic as well. It then would go to the port of Fort Pierce, which this port ought to be encouraging because otherwise you will see freight traffic that then had to be carted by short sea shipping up the Intercoastal. But more importantly, Indiantown is also the Okeechobee Waterway, which is part of Palm Beach County. And it used to be part of you prior to you deciding to get rid of your two properties out on the Rim Canal channel of the Okeechobee Waterway. You would have been positioned even better if you kept them. The real thing is, I do not think that Commissioner Richards saying that you're wanting to push only the glades, because for the port's benefit, you need to be connected with the rail access from here out to Indiantown, which is also another crossing of the FEC. So the center out there has lots of potential, and that's where we all thought the Inland Port was going when it first was conceived. Sure, Sugar Crystal has all these grandiose plans and some approval concepts. Glades is a great place for another airport for international traffic so that you get some cargo in, and maybe even FedEx or somebody else would pick up on it as a sub-hub. But you don't need to just say that inland ports are the glades.
Okay, Gerald, your time's up. Did you have any?
Yes, okay.
Comment on the second?
The second item, last night, the City Council of Riviera Beach said that will be on their agenda for the first meeting of June, and I don't quite share the executive director's view that everything that he cited was publicly discussed. So the city of Riviera Beach is still the higher level government, and but at least after 2 years, we should get another meeting and get down the road to finalize that document.
Thank you very much. Okay, very good presentation. Consent agenda. We're going to pull a card on E11. Anybody have anything? Go ahead, man. Do we have a motion for the consent? We are going to pull E11. So we'll pull that first. Yeah, okay, E11, Martin Murphy, comment, and then Gerald Ward.
Commissioners and Mr. Chair, my name's Martin Murphy, 1124 Avenue C. I'm your neighbor on the north side, and I've been following for the last 2 or 3 meetings different items in the master plan and just version 1, and I'm real concerned to see some planning that shows what the black line is here. Reading the backup, it says that the port has met with a lot of folks, but nobody from the city of Riviera Beach that I know of, or from the working waterfront, which is our neighbor to the north, has been contacted. My only contact was one time one of the consultants came on our property and I called Manny and he said that wouldn't happen again. But that was the guy that told me what they were doing. If you look at the plan that's shown on the master plan update, all it shows is that dark line. It doesn't show what's proposed in that dark line. Thank you.
So does anybody else have anything? The 15 cards from Gerald Ward.
I have a question on E11, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
And E11, birth one update, our 3 months have run, obviously. And what are your thoughts going forward?
Sure. As represented, 3 months were up on this past Friday. We have a total of 2 interested parties. They have received written communication. And if you like, Jared's in the position of make a brief presentation.
Sure. Please.
Commissioners, good evening. I provided in your folders an update for the Birth One RFP responses. As Executive Director Elmira indicated, we have 2 written items from 2 different parties. We just received those last Friday. We have not had an opportunity to review those. We will bring those back to you with a recommendation at the next board meeting. And there is a list of the distribution as to who the RFP went out to, and it reached over 1.8 million in distribution by various methods, crews, cargo, executives, and that was in several methods, e-blasts, e-newsletters, print media.
So we may have one that responds, is that correct?
We have 2 responses. We need to review them and see if the minimum criteria has been met, Commissioner.
That's fine. All right, thank you very much.
Gerald Ward, a couple minutes.
Well, I'm glad that Commissioner Richards started the process to do some explanation and bring it out to the board, what is going on. Of the 2, you say you're going to evaluate. When are you going to come back? I don't know if there was a specific time frame in the materials.
Yes, Commissioners, that will be next month. We will bring you a recommendation.
During the next board meeting.
All right. Obviously, the definition of that project is extremely nebulous, and you will see the same complaints in your comprehensive plan. So I don't think you meet the statutory requirements for defining it in the comprehensive plan language. So somewhere along the line, staff needs to turn around and look at the law, and when you do a new project, and as Mr. Murphy said, possibly other than one of the rumored applicants, the Heisinger Group, there really hasn't been any communication with the higher level city, Riviera Beach. And this is an important planning issue.
All right, thank you very much.
And no communication with the Florida Inland Navigation District, which I verified daily.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, then we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 5-0. Very good. District reports.
Thank you. Commissioners, we were busy this past month and a half, I guess. Late March, you remember Congressman Hastings' visit and luncheon, Cuban food for lunch. Next time, of course, he requested soul food, and we're definitely going to accommodate him with that.
He looked at me.
During the late March, I participated in the Florida Ports Council Fest meeting up in Tallahassee, where I met the new Army Corps of Engineers Colonel Jason Kirk, not Captain, he's Kirk, Colonel Kirk. He, this colonel is located, of course, up in their Jacksonville office. Colonel Kirk is making his rounds, and he wants to meet with Mayor Caniglio and myself. That meeting is planned for later in this spring. Also this month, we attended the annual AAPA Washington, D.C. conference. Commissioner Waldron and I had met and attended several conferences, and in addition to that, of course, we went to the Hill. We met with Congressman Hastings, Congressman Mask, and of course, Congresswoman Frankel. We discussed the aforementioned topic we talked about here, which is the inland port concept and possible funding for rail replacement and improvement here at the Port of Palm Beach. It was Congressman Mass who mentioned that he would include a port meeting in one of his visits to South Florida as early as next month. While in Washington, I took the opportunity to meet with members of the Cuban Embassy. They quickly reminded me that their upcoming Havana Food Fair is coming up last day of October this year and a couple of days into November. His words were that the recent visit by their delegation, all of those members are waiting now for us to visit them. Incidentally, he cannot stop talking about how great they felt while they visited our port. Well, that was back in February, if I recall. Around the port, this just happened early this morning. And what I'd like to do is have Jara address this particular topic, which is the Palm Beach Business Development Board, the Economic Development Forum, April 20th. So Jara, if you please.
Thank you. This morning from about 7:30 until 12:30, the Business Development Board had the Economic Development Forum at the Convention Center. There were several speakers, amazing speakers, talked about innovation in the county, from our sheriff's office to physicians that have moved to this county and are doing truly amazing things. One thing that we were able to do was put the sheriff's office in touch with the Business Development Board and have the bomb squad there with their robots. And many of you saw one of those robots here in the boardroom at one of our meetings. It was very well received. The port had part in that in providing security grant money to participate in the purchase of those robots, and they're being used all over the county. They're being used outside our county and throughout our state.
Thank you. If I can go on then, a little out of order here, the United States Coast Guard conducted an annual unannounced security audit of the port's security department of compliance with Maritime Transportation Security Act. The Port of Palm Beach was found in compliance with all regulations with no deficiencies or discrepancies identified. So kudos to Mr. Ken Hearn for his active participation and making sure that we are following the laws to the T. Commissioners, that's something that you saw 2 seconds ago, and there it is. The Department of State has contacted, is it through Bradshaw? I believe it is, Sheriff Bradshaw. And they would like to have a number of consulates in and around the international area, primarily from the Caribbean, Central and South America, visit the county of Palm Beach. They, meaning the Sheriff's Office, have contacted us to see if we will be willing to meet with them as well on May 15th for a quick type breakfast and a port presentation, to which I have already agreed to. If I can, the Experience Florida visit provides Palm Beach County with an opportunity to promote its community and businesses. Economic development, promoting commerce, trade, technology, communication, and investment on both sides. Dialogue of policing, training, and technology in today's rapidly changing environment. The visit will also serve to promote our American values, including diversity, freedom of expression, and multicultural mosaic. Again, They will be here on Monday, May the 15th, so if you please like to join us, let us know. We talked a little bit about the inland port, and of course, we talked about the FEC. Back on March 28th, it was announced that GMEX Transportes and FEC announced that they have entered into an agreement under which GMEX will acquire FEC for $2.1 billion. A little bit about the purchaser here. Group Mexico moves about 1.4 million loads a year on its network of more than 6,200 miles of track in Mexico. Incidentally, in 2007, the FEC Railroad was purchased by private equity funds managed by the Fortress Management Company. Fortress also owns Florida East Coast Industries, headquartered in Coral Gables, and is developing a passenger rail line between Orlando and Miami. This is not part of the sale. Port, and that as much as I want to talk about FEC and this recent purchase. Commissioner, I'd like to bring up to your attention something that we are researching, and that would be the use of an outside travel agency to expedite port's travel activity. We have contacted American Express and have found that they will be more than willing to take us on as a client, of course, at a cost of $35 a ticket for domestic tickets and $60 on international per occurrence. In other words, we would be using this travel agency to do basically the legwork. And then, of course, they will be reporting to us when and what type of itinerary is available. This is something that we are researching, and by the month of May, I would like to bring back further analysis and conclusion.
Chairman, I just want to make a comment on your last about the travel, if you go back. I think that I don't like the idea, this is me personally, because I'm looking at whenever you go to AAPA and things like that, and they need rooms and stuff, they really need to talk to people at the port and find out if commissioners are going or what's going on. And then I think they will have a hard time with the travel agency going back, and then you want to save all this money. I think that's getting more money. Now, a lot of us don't even do a whole lot of traveling. I mean, you know, we do periodically. But at the end of the day, I don't see how they can do this kind of service for us, because AAPA and all our other, any other place we need to go, normally we'd have to talk to someone here for registration, because registration has to be done in-house. They wouldn't even be able to do that. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
I will bring it back next month and we'll talk about it.
Of course.
Is that something that would be put out to a formal bid?
Well, it's just because of the amount of travel, as the Commissioner mentions.
I'm not, I don't disagree, I think it's probably,
Yeah.
valid option, I was just wondering if it would be a formal process.
The only one, honestly, at this point that we have contacted is, I mean, just for research purposes, is Amex, and then we could possibly put it out there. But if, as the chair mentioned, we'll bring it back in May. A couple of more events that are coming up, of course. The Executive Management Conference in Tampa, the Commissioner Seminar in Indianapolis, Indiana. The lake is there, therefore there's a port. That's why. Public Relations and Economic Development Seminar in Portland, Oregon. It's a long way to go to attend that. And of course, last is the Port Security Seminar Expo in Chicago, Illinois. Now, Commissioner, during the last meeting, we were requested to provide you, the board, and the public with a financial report. With that in mind, what I'd like to do is bring up Mr. Paul Zielinski, our CFO, Deputy Port Director. If that's okay, we'll do that now.
Good afternoon. First thing I'd like to talk about is the port's cash position, which is always near and dear to everybody's heart. As of the end of February, the port had roughly $28 million in cash. Of that $28 million, 46% of the cash was in an unrestricted category. And that basically means that the board is free to direct that cash as they see fit. We normally keep 1 year's worth of operating expenses in reserve, as it basically helps us with our audit and our investment bank. That would be about $9 million. The rest of it is used to fund future capital projects. We hold it there until such time as the board approves a project, then we move it. The next item, the largest item, is the restricted debt service. That has approximately $6.3 million in it. That is required by our bond covenant. It's like an escrow account where we put the interest in, we put the interest we have to pay in monthly, and once a year we pay the principal. Twice a year we pay the interest, once a year we pay the principal. And this has a way of just refunding. The next thing we have is FDOT restricted grants. I'm glad to say that a port has adopted a policy, fiscal policy, where when a JPA is approved, the money goes into the bank account and can easily be identified as being fully funded. The next largest item we have is renewal and replacement and business development, total for about $1.4 million. These are again linked to our bond covenants where we're required to put away 5% of prior year's revenue for each of them. And when we spend money in either one of those categories, it comes out of this cash account. We also have about $737,000 currently for other capital projects, non-JPA projects that we need to do around the port that we need to spend money on. And lastly, we just have a minor amount for security. So we are in solid position cash-wise, and as an example, the next time the board approves a capital project, as part of that, I would come back and ask to move that amount of money over to the matching grants. On the financial side, last year, fiscal year 2016, the port generated $16,689,000 worth of revenue. At this time last year, we had already accumulated 39% of $6,476,000 towards the full year amount. Our budget this year is for $16,544,000. The decline is basically due to the loss of the rents on the MOB, offset by increased cruise revenue. If we look at the expenses of the revenue to date, we're looking at $6,917,000. Of that amount, $560,000, and that's a $440,000 increase over prior year. Of that amount, $560,000 positive comes from the cruise, and about $200,000 plus is the loss of the MOB revenue. Last year, our expenses were $14,679,000. We had expended about 41% by now, or about $6 million. Our budget this year is slightly higher at $15,043,000. We have to pick up a full year's depreciation on slip 3, which is going to add about $400,000. We've increased our insurances, both health and property, by about $120,000. And we have the business development went up by about $167,000. And all of this has been offset by about $320,000 worth of savings on interest expense in the bonds due to the refunding we did last year. This year we've got about $6 million worth of expenses to date, and depreciation on slip 3 again is $213 to date. The refunding so far has given us $141. Operating expenses are right on target at about $3,000 difference. Last year our net income was $2 million. I do want to point out that that was the number that was provided on internal statements. Our audited statements will be presented next month, and that will drop. There is a journal entry, a requirement that we get from the state each and every year that we have to book related to the FRS pension liability. We can't even estimate it. Last year, the year before last, it was $12,000, $13,000. Our entry this year was going to be $150,000 worth of expense. The increase is due to actuary tables being redone, interest rates, so we will drop below $2 million. We had $448,000 worth of net income last year at this point in time. Our budget is $1.5 million. It's basically a reduction as a result of everything that I had spoken about, the increased expenses and the lower revenue. We already have $863,000, or we've increased, we already have $863,000, which is 57% of our budget, and it's all to do with the revenue and basically holding the revenue increases and holding expenses flat. We are well on our way to hitting our budget, possibly even exceeding it. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that we are taking a look at whether or not there is a significant enough variance that we are required to do a reforecast. If we are, we will commence doing it.
Well, I want to continue to applaud staff on these numbers. I presented these to the business community of the county yesterday, and they were very well pleased. And they also noted that the director and staff have maintained the expenses, and over the course of the last few years, they have not gone up, they've held in line while revenue's gone up. So the county is also recognizing that business community. It's a great job.
Thank you.
I have a couple for the director. Just follow-up housekeeping. When we met with the Congress people up there, there was some follow-up that we were going to send to, I think, Congressman Mass, the white paper on the inland port. Did we send that already?
Not yet, but we're waiting, not only that, but we're also putting a summary together, sort of a flash report that will be a one-pager. They have all the information on the port. We should be able to finish that by early next week.
Great.
And be able to send it up.
And you'll copy all of us, right?
Of course.
Another question I had was I think but there was a meeting at the Port Council about the consultant report, choosing the consultant yesterday. What was the outcome of that?
Sure. We haven't, actually, we forced it to come be in our meeting today. Carl Baker can provide you with that report. Carl,
Okay.
you please.
Yesterday, the Florida Ports Council had presentations for their distribution center analysis study that they're putting out for proposals. There were 3 companies that presented. It was Cambridge Systematics, who's done a lot of work for us and in South Florida. Martin & Associates, who's been around, everybody knows them. And then there was the company called CPCS, which is kind of new to Florida, but they have done work down here, and they're currently doing work for FDOT District 4, so they're not a complete unknown. They presented yesterday. There was a total of 8 people on the review committee. There was myself. We had 3 people from Florida Ports Council, somebody from Canaveral, 2 people from Port of Jacksonville, and there's supposed to be 1 other person there, and we called them up, and it was like, oh, you mean this Wednesday? So they weren't there. Anyway, when it was all shaken out, CPCS got the nod. The Toy Keller from Florida Ports Council made the comment that this would be, I just lost my train of thought. That this would be a high risk, high reward from CPCS. We felt that they were really thinking outside the box on what we were looking to do. This was about a half-hour discussion between us, between going with Cambridge or going with CPCS, and eventually we had a unanimous decision that we were going to go with CPCS. There's going to be a scoping meeting with them probably in the next month or so to determine the exact scope of work and give them some more direction and guidance. And that's where we are.
Is there a timeline for everything to be?
That's going to be discussed. Everybody was projecting a 6 to 7 month study period. There's not a tremendous impetus to get this thing done immediately. Everybody felt that it's better to go 7 months and get a really well thought out program rather than trying to do it in 5, which would be an absolute crash program for something like this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Commissioners, my presentation is completed. Now it's engineering.
Engineering?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is the engineering report for BERT 17 project. As you might as well remember for our last presentation on the March board meeting, we saw the contractor was already working on the construction of the form guide for the piles for the bulkhead construction. And during that presentation, I bring a video in which you can see the process of the construction of the piles. It will drill and cast primary piles through the form pile, from the guide form pile, and then right after the primary piles, he will drill the secondary piles in an overlapping sequence between each of the primary piles. And the secondary pile will be longer and will have reinforced in them. Once all the piles were completed and the wall will be completed, it will be the material inside the BERT will be removed, and we actually leave the space for the new slip. During that meeting, we saw the production that will be performed by the contractor. At that time, the contractor was working on the west side wall of the BERT. By that time, he had completed 29 piles, which was roughly 21% of the piles for the complete project. After that meeting, the contractor mobilized a second rig to the project, and that second rig was located in the north side wall, where the original, where the first rig was placed. Instead of moving one rig to the south side and one to the north side, they decided it was more productive to have both of the rigs at the same wall. So they actually started the process of drilling, removing the material inside the shafts, and installation of the rebar. Where you can see here, this is the rigging plan, the rigging of the rebar and the installation of the rebar inside the shaft on the north wall of the BERT. Once that process is done, the final process will be the pouring or the casting of the pile while pouring concrete inside the shaft. So where we are right now, the contractor during the month of March was working on the west side, where we completed 21% of the piles. Right after that, he continued to work on the west side, completing the 100% of the piles in that section. He moved both of the rigs to the north side of the BERT, and now they're completing the north side, and they already shift one of the rigs to the south side. As for now, the contractor have completed 61% of the pile that compose the second wall, which are the walls for the bulkhead. The construction of the bulkhead for the pile sequencing will be finished by the end of May, the first week of August. Once the piles are finished, it will lead up to the next activities. Will be the construction of the bulkhead, which will involve installation of forms, rebar, and casting. And while they're doing that work, they will also be working on the water side of the project with the construction of the structures for the dolphins and the catwalk that connects them together. Right after that activity, the next activity will be the dredging of the project. As for now, the last update of the project reflects that the project will be completed by the end of December, with the BERT construction to be completed throughout the month of August. Dolphin structure will begin by the end of May, and will be completed also by the end of August, and the dredge inside the BERT will be completed throughout the month of November. Invoices by the contractor indicated the project is completed to a 44%, which is roughly $4.5 million. And by the end of the month of August, will be over the 60% mark of the actual contract for the project. So we comply with the bond money, which require us to spend the $4.6 million that the Seaport Investment Program invest in the project before December 2017. So by the end of August, we already comply with the request. As for now, we have some claims by the contractor. One is the difficulties for the removal of the existing sheet pile, which is already in discussion between the contractor LMH, the engineer of record AECOM, and the port. We plan to come back to the board during the May board meeting and present the update of those evaluations. There are additional claims on the evaluation that are included in the list of that was provided to the commissioners in the engineering report. We expect to report our evaluations to the next board meeting. In addition to those included in that list, we don't have any additional claims regarding change order from the contractors. Do you have any questions for the? Okay, we'll not have a representation from the ECOMs. We'll present the project management update for the verse 17.
Quick question, when is the project originally, when was it supposed to be completed?
July of this year.
Yeah.
Now it's been moved to December of this year?
It has.
The project was supposed to be completed by the July of this year. 2 months ago, it reflected that it will be completed in July of this year, so it was 12 months delay, and the last 2 updates for April and March show that it will finish through the month of December.
My question, you're saying July and December, but my understanding, when Tom Lundin was here, did he allocate and make sure that we had monies to last a certain period of time? I think for the whole year, because I think I even asked him that question, suppose something happened, and I think Tom Lundin looked at me, because everybody was talking about save a dollar, and I said, wait a minute. And so he explained that he had built in the whole project. So if we had delays or things happen, that we had enough finances to last us to December. And I remember, we can go back to the minute, so, is that true?
Let them come in, do the presentation, and then maybe you can ask them, let them do it before we start.
Good afternoon, Karen Brandon with AECOM. We have a request for an amendment to the AECOM Construction Engineering Services contract for 2 additional items. The first item has to do with a redesign of the dolphin piles at the request of the contractor. That's in the amount of $22,258. That would essentially be a redesign from concrete piles, which is how the project was designed and bid. And it's typically, this is a less expensive option over the larger diameter steel piles that the contractor is now requesting. In addition, not all contractors have the capabilities to install the larger diameter steel piles. Therefore, had it been originally bid that way, we could have been limiting the number of contractors that bid on the project and therefore increasing cost. And in addition, since that time, I'm told that the steel prices have also been dropping over the last 12 to 18 months. So LMH has requested a steel pile option. It was suggested that they run the redesign through AECOM since we were the original design engineers, and that cost will be, the intent is to pass that through the construction contract, and LMH will give the port a credit for that amount. So that $258 will be a pass through to the port. The second part of that requested amendment for $64,905 is a continued resident inspection services for our subconsultant PSA constructors that will take us through June 30th of this year, with the intent being now that we're going into negotiations and discussions with the contractor over the contract extension and the various items that will be up for change order, both credits and cost items, and the extension that they're currently proposing to the schedule through December. We are thinking we would need to eventually come back for additional time at some point, but this particular extension is because PSA's current budget is running out this month. So we are requesting an extension through June 30th to get us through these negotiations and discussions with the contractor. Originally, PSA was budgeted for 46 weeks, knowing that at the end of the project, we typically don't need full inspection services. So they weren't budgeted for an entire calendar year at that time. And originally also, Tom suggested that we only do AECOM services for 12 months. Because keep in mind, when we brought this to you, originally this was October or in November when we originally drafted the budget for the construction engineering services before the project was even bid at that point. So, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any
Do
questions.
we have this in writing anywhere, or is this just all verbal?
We'll be going back and forth, Commissioners. Verbal.
Okay, all right, so you can summarize, I mean, I'm a little lost, so you want to summarize what you're looking for again?
AECOM is requesting a contract amendment to our construction engineering services contract for the Dolphin Pile redesign, which will be a pass-through to the port in the amount of $22,258, and continued resident inspection services for our subconsultant PSA constructors through the end of June for $64,905. For a total amendment of $87,463.
I have 2 questions. I have 2 questions. The first question, you said that if we approve this, then it will last you for 2 months or so period of time. Then you will have to come back. So my question is, I think it's crazy that we keep coming back. We need to look at our whole package and just go to Christmas and just get it done. Because I mean, in 2 weeks, and you might have to come back to the board and say, hey, we can't work anymore. Hey, we need to see you again. I have a problem with that. And then, go on, I'm sorry, come back.
Commissioner, thank you for that. And as Ms. Brandon noted, there will be discussions with the contractor. So at the moment, they're indicating they believe it will go to the end of December. But pending our discussions, I think we'll have a much better sense of that in May, so that it really, I think, makes the best sense to ask for your consideration through June, and then to allow us to come back with a request when we are able to determine exactly what the full amount will be. And thank you for your recognition that it's probably easier to just ask once. But I think because we do have some discussions to take place with the contractor, it would be better to come back at that time.
And I guess my second question would be to Paul. How much from the beginning did Mr. Lundin put in the budget? Because when I talked to him last year and he went over all this, he said, well, we have cushions for change order and blah, blah, blah. And how much money the port has to pay, I mean, with these new changes, or if any at all. Because my understanding was he took the whole project all the way through and came up with a figure and said, hey, so talk to us.
Originally, there were 3 work orders. I'm sorry. Originally, there were 3 work orders approved: $97,000, $98,000, $300 for a total of $398, and then 1 for $500, which would now bring you up to $897,000. That was the total budget that was allotted for AECOM and PSA for a project that was intended to last 12 months. In there included 12 months of AECOM's work and basically 46 weeks for PSA's involvement.
How much have we spent?
We have basically remaining about $79,000.
And if we give them money for this, where would the other money come from? Do we have money in another? So the money that Tom Lundin allocated was $897,000, and we spent it all.
We've spent it all but $80,000.
$80,000. Now, I guess my question is, if we go on and need to get money to finish this project Christmas, because we don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, every time this is an old port, all sorts of things have happened. I guess if we could extend it and have to go to Christmas with everything, where are we going to get the other funds from? And, I mean, you're our financial man. What are we gonna, how can we make this work? Or can we?
The total project was originally funded through the bond department of FDOT for $9.2 million.
Okay.
Unlike normal grants, we were allowed to spend their money first, which we have almost done completely. The next 4.6 million will be out of our pocket, which would bring us to the original estimate for the project of 9.2. The port has been successful in getting an additional $3 million for the project, 50-50, 1.5 and 1.5 million. So once we go through our 4.6 and we are obligated to pay out of our pocket, then we would, if we still are short for the project, we would start using the supplemental JVAs.
Okay, so in essence, if we need to extend and need more money to complete it, because, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, they're asking for change orders, and I look at the world this way. If we don't give it to them, the project's gonna stop. We can't complete the project. So why are we investing all these millions and millions of dollars, and we need a couple, even 100,000 or two, or whatever we need to do the project, but we just stop, so we cannot stop. I mean, we have no choice. We have to do all the change orders until the project is complete. Am I correct?
Yeah, I guess the short
Because
answer
if
would
not,
be,
then they can't work.
the short
This is
answer is
crazy.
we have to come up with 50 cents on the dollar for everything they ask for.
Or else we cannot, I mean, it didn't make any sense to even start the project if you're gonna stop handedly because we're out of a couple of dollars and say, hey, we can't complete it.
Wayne?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at each change order one at a time to make a informed decision. So having said that, the monies were allocated for 12 months for AECom and 46 weeks for PSA. At this, I'm not sure, I'll look to our engineer, but please feel free to refer. At some point, we anticipate the project will take how long in its entirety?
We anticipate to go all the way to December based on the last update for the contractor. So that will be 6 additional months.
So instead of 12, 50% additional time.
Correct.
And has this board voted and approved that additional 6 months?
No.
So I'm not comfortable piecemealing one at a time, one now, one 20 minutes from now, and one next month. I'm not gonna do that, and I ask my board not to do that. We need to know what we're doing, if I may continue. It just doesn't make sense. Also, Manny, if you're gonna ask us to, well, you didn't ask us to approve it, but if you're gonna, this is on the agenda, I'd really like more, this needs to be spelled out for us. If this was a 12-month project, we're now being pushed to 18 months, and here are all of the ramifications. So please, if you could, I know you want to talk about.
Jumping. This past week, in all fairness, about 2.5 weeks ago, I was informed, advised of all these potential changes of wanting to have these agenda items brought up to the commissioners during this month. When I started to analyze it, not only me, but staff, we saw how convoluted and how challenging it will be. Particularly, with all due respect, particularly with 5 of you that are not being on this on a daily basis. Also, if you recall, commissioners, with the exception of Commissioner Waldron, when we were doing slip 3, I recall distinctively that every month or close to it, there was a change order and a change order. And I know that that was not the way to do it. This board started to lose its patience. So, we requested a meeting. I'm not sure who initiated the meeting. It might have been Lori, it might have been me. So the whole point is that we met on Wednesday. And I proposed the following.
Tuesday.
Thank you, Tuesday. I proposed the following. I said, why not bring everything back in May with all of the information, all the possible research, particularly why it says project going from July to December. Well, I never got an answer for why that project's going to be delayed, but nevertheless, a word was used, let's plow right through this. And I told during the meeting, I don't feel comfortable with this. I really do not. A, we've already submitted an agenda. B, we don't have backups. All we have is a lot of verbal going back and forth. And C, this is extremely convoluted. Particularly, I don't know if you picked up on it, but the so-called, okay, we paid the contractor now, then somehow we get that money back, and well, there's more to it behind door number 3. So therefore, what I'm suggesting, and I talked to the chair, my suggestion is, AECOM has come to us requesting monies for PSA. 1 month, we worked this out, would have been $40,000. They're saying, let's go 2 months, and I was 64,000. My strong recommendation would be, give them 1 month, and let us come back in May with all this information, well outlined, well detailed, so that each and every one of us will be on the same music sheet. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm hearing today that we're considering adding 50% time to the project time frame. I need a better understanding. I'm not going to go for a month or a day. I may do that next month when I have a better understanding. I don't have anything here. It would be prudent for me to support that. So the question is, if we don't make a decision now with our eyes closed, Mr. Engineer, are we in any danger of the project being harmed if we don't do something today?
There's a need for an engineer representative at the project site. I'm as engineer, I'm part of the board, but I cannot be the one that actually inspects in terms of the permits that we require for the city.
And how many weeks has PSA been at the port performing resident inspection services? Because we budgeted for 46 weeks. How many weeks have they been here doing resident inspection services?
They started in May 23, so they already went the whole 46 weeks that they were in the budget.
Yeah. I just heard July is when we started, so explain that.
Well, based on the documentation that we have, the inspection started before the project notice to proceed was July the 5th. The inspection was in place on May 23, and the project started in July 5.
The one question that Wayne brought up the time, but what about the dollar amount?
Right.
I mean, that's, well, yeah, but I don't mind the time so much. The dollar.
They go together. They're the same.
But what is the cost to overrun?
So the dollar amount we were running out at the beginning of April, I think as through our March invoice, we only had about $2,000 left in PSA. Yeah, PSAs.
Oh, for the whole project.
For the whole project, through the May invoice, we might have about our March invoice, I think we might have about $45,000 or $50,000 left. Some of that's allocated to our electrical sub and civil sub. Some is allocated for the project closeout costs for AECOM. And so that's why we're not physically, at this time, asking for more additional AECOM dollars. We plan on using the dollars that were allocated for the project closeout time at this point. We can work off of that, but we don't have the money in our current budget to pay for PSA.
But for the next, till December, instead of July,
right?
Do we have a guesstimate on what the extra cost for the whole project?
I did originally provide that to the board. I didn't bring that number with me.
Give me a ballpark.
Ballpark was probably probably 250,000 or so, at least. I don't remember what that exact number was. But I submitted that originally and it was requested that I pull back and only go and request through June.
Wait, may I please? Okay, for the record, Lori Berry, AECOM. I'd like to just give the board a little bit of background and perspective. There were some internal communication failures, which is why you're getting this verbally and not as we had thought would be in the board books. And when we had our meeting on Tuesday, we asked to have it added, and I'm a little surprised that you haven't received what we provided to the port 2.5 weeks ago. But the decision was made by the port, by Mr. Lundin, to ask for a 12-month budget. And it was anticipated that the project would be longer. Karen provided the full number, but we were asked to present only the 12-month period. So it was anticipated at the start that we would come back when we had a better sense of where the project would be going.
That's right. Hold it, can't be right, that sounds offensive.
It's,
Hold it, so we knew it would take more than 12, we knew it would take more than 12 months, but we said 12 and we covered our eyes?
When we came to you all and you all approved the budget for the construction services, this was it was October of 2015, I believe, when it was signed. So the project had not been bid yet. And included in that bidding and construction services, the first work order was a certain period of time, I believe 3 or 4 months for the bidding process, and then 12 months for construction beginning February 1st for AECOM services. So it wasn't expected at that time that that would actually carry us through the full construction period. But that's that.
I'm lost.
I'm lost too, I share your concern, but you're an engineer. I mean, I can't understand why we don't have backup. Obviously, our staff is uncomfortable with what's happening today, as all of us are up here. Nobody wants to do, irreparable harm to the project or to anybody else, but I just don't see how we can approve something on an oral request when we have no backup. We have no justification. And, I mean, if AECOM as well as port staff are responsible to give the board a full and complete presentation on what to expect, financially, chronologically, and everything else. I don't care, and I'm sorry he's not here, but I don't care who tells you to give us a 12-month period. If you think it is a 15-month or an 18-month project, I think you have a professional obligation to tell us. And I'm sorry, I just can't support this today.
Well, what we might do, how much money do we need? How much money do we need to take us to the next month? So nothing.
Through May.
Yes.
40,000 through May.
So,
I
I would assume then that you would be okay with that.
I would be, and then in the month of May, as I mentioned before, many times, we will bring it back, and therefore everyone would be much better informed as to what happened here and how do we proceed. I'm not sure why is that so difficult. I really don't.
I guess my problem is I have a problem with all of it, because my understanding is that we were given a 1-year contract, and then at the beginning, in June or whatever, they would come back and give us updates. And I know Tom is not here to defend himself, but I know, and I specifically asked him, I asked Peggy to go back and pull the minutes, that hey, I want to know for the whole year, how long will the project last? And I'm pretty 100% he said 1 year.
Okay, we're
now,
rehashing.
and I'm not going to rehash. One other thing I would like to say is that I feel that we should give them the money they need to continue the project for the month or whatever they asked for now, because I would hate for the project to fail, because the engineer said we have things that are pertinent that have to be done. So in our next meeting is a month from now, I mean, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, hey, we don't have a meeting until a month. So I think that we should give them the money they need to proceed, because we just cannot say, hey.
That's what I just said, so.
Commissioner,
How much,
say something.
go ahead.
Ed Opal with PSA Constructors, Vice President of Marine Operations. I just want to let you know, whatever you decide, I can assure you that PSA will not walk off the job. PSA will stay on the job as long as it takes to get the job completed and we get this whole thing resolved. So don't put your money issue on the table on behalf of PSA. We will be here with or without the money.
Thank you. So, go ahead, Wayne.
I hate to say the word workshop. I don't know if it's a workshop or if it's a lengthy item on next meeting, but we need to give us some opportunity. And I appreciate, Mr. Commissioner, I appreciate Mr. Opal saying that I feel, I'm glad you said that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think it would be, at the next meeting, we all need to see basically what the project originally was gonna cost, what it's gonna cost, and have the breakdowns. That's not, I don't think it's that difficult to do that.
This is wonderful, but could you add one more thing that my old eyes can see? Tell us what the beginning date and the ending date is, so I don't have to count those squares.
If I may, once again, this is indicative of rushing and trying to plow through all of this. There is another point that we raised during, and thank you, Tuesday's meeting, and that is AECOM apparently still has money in their budget. Why can't AECOM, I don't recall what the reason was that they weren't interested in doing so.
Perhaps I could respond to that, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that it's ever good practice to work out of budget. And while there's remaining money in the overall AECOM contract, it was determined weeks ago that we would be asking to address the inspection services budget. AECOM also would never let the project suffer or stop the project or walk off the job, but I'm sure that you don't want the project to proceed out of budget. And so that's why we were very surprised to hear that there were no plans to address it at this meeting. And I'm sorry that you have had to hear this verbally and not receive the documentation that we did provide. And I would certainly, appreciate also your consideration that because we moved ahead with the redesign that was requested by the contractor, AECOM is essentially working at risk for that. So we would at least like your recognition through formal action that the method for moving forward with that is acceptable to the commission, and that is the essential pass-through that Karen explained.
Paul?
What I'd like to recommend with respect to that is that truly is just a budgeted amount or the estimating the amount of time. I have no idea how long it's going to take, and truly we don't have anything firm in writing yet as to how much the contractor is willing to give back. What I suggested is that the board approve the concept, and once we receive the credit from the contractor, and that whatever he gives us as a credit, we will provide that right through to AECOM. But right now, we have no idea what it is.
In my mind, it's unrelated. If we're using the word pass-through, I won't say it's a pass-through. It's a plus and a minus. It's not a pass-through. It's just plus and minus. To me, each must stand on their own merit.
Right. I would like to make a motion.
Wait a second, we're not ready. Go ahead.
What is the reason for that redesign?
John Carell with the AECOM. And the reason for the redesign was, as Karen mentioned, there's a little bit less risk in using steel pipe piles in lieu of the concrete piles originally designed. In the last, as she mentioned, the last 12 to 18 months, the price of steel has come down, so there is some economy now in going to those changes. In some respects, it simplifies the formwork. So, you know, overall, you know, it was easier for the contractor. So, you know, if it's add some to our budget, it deducts some from his. So it was.
Thank you, Manny. So what would you recommend that we do? Because Gene's ready to make a motion with your.
Absolutely. I would like the board to approve a $40,000 budget add-on, if you want to call that, to this project, and that will carry us through the month of May. Now, in the month of May, during our next board meeting, be it a workshop or be elongated or long, let us bring back, and we'll work with AECOM and PSA, let us bring back not only how much more money, but how much more all the way through Christmas season. You know, we have some concern. I mean, we looked at this and we're just looking at it, and it's almost $250,000. So, but that, I want to verify that with
Okay.
AECOM, but that would be my recommendation.
Is the 40,000, is that okay? Because we're not gonna probably do any more, so. Wanting to.
It is, and we would also like to ask you to make a motion to add to the agenda, voting on that, and also the approval of, and we have no objection to Mr. Zielinski's suggestion of approving it in concept for the cost of what it is and what is returned through the contractor.
Mr. Chairman, I have a problem with all of that. I would like, my motion would be that we approve the $87,460 so we can do the construction of the $22,258 and then the other $64,905, so then they can start working on that. Then at our next meeting, I know you're always saying a workshop, but you know, between now and here is Mother's Day and other things happen. And then we get together and then we look at everything, because piecemealing this is not gonna work. And I would make I want to make a motion that we approve the change order for $87,460, and then after that, we can meet, workshop, or whatever you want to do to look at the rest of the year going forward. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to do it anyway.
May we have a motion to add this to the agenda?
And then add it to the agenda.
We have a motion by Commissioner Richards to add this to the agenda. Second by. All right, so all in favor, all opposed, carries 5 to add it. All right, now we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second for the adding to the agenda?
No, we already we're talking about her motion.
We're talking about the motion
Now-
to give the $87,460 and then come back for a discussion for the rest of the year.
So we have, no second for 87?
I have a motion.
Go ahead, Wayne. That dies.
I move that we approve the change to fund the engineering work for that change from cement to steel. I didn't write it all down.
22,520.
I move that we approve the engineering work for that, and we approve that change. Period.
What is that amount?
22,000.
Just you're just approving that.
What's the amount for the engineering work?
22,000.
And what was the savings on the other end?
Same.
I won't use the word pass, right? I move that we approve that portion, that we approve that engineering change and the work, the engineering work to do that.
I have a question.
That's my
We have a
motion.
second? Second?
Mr. Zielinski suggested we do it conceptually because we don't absolutely know what the figures will be. Is that part of your motion?
Sure, I want to get money in engineering money for that work. We understand that, I believe we understand that, that makes sense.
Who may,
So I'll add the word conceptual approval of that.
before I I just want, you asked for 40,000?
I did, that's just, that'll carry us 1 month. We're talking about 2 months, either the end of May or the end of June. That 87,000 includes the end of June with the engineering. We're saying is 40,000 just for PSA, we're not touching the engineering.
Okay, my motion was simply the
Okay,
engineering.
okay, I'll second that one.
We already have a second.
Discussion, I guess my question is, who would do the inspections? Because our engineers cannot by law inspect our projects.
Ed
So
just said
don't.
he was gonna do it.
Yeah.
Ed said-
Yeah, Ed said he was gonna do it.
We're gonna come back to these, we're gonna work with our engineers, we know these teams, we're gonna work with them, we respect them, we know them, but we need to understand it all. So they said, please at least approve the engineering work for this change. I think we can understand it. I think it makes sense to approve that, and I would expect a thorough explanation at the next meeting, and possibly meetings before that, so we don't sit here for 3 hours looking for
We've gotta get it all before the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to the commissioner? We would ask you to please vote on some increase for inspection services. And while PSA would not walk off the job, the overall budget would get us maybe to the end of May. And that is, precariously close to down to nothing. And I'm sure you don't want us to work out a budget. So could you please consider that? And I also would like to respond to the question that was asked about when did the inspection services start, and
we're gonna do that, we don't need to get into that. Yeah, next month we need everything, so that's, at this point, that's almost irrelevant, because that's just one little piece of the whole.
They can't continue. They can't continue.
Well,
I'd
like to call the question. All right, we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Richards for the 22,588. We have a second, we've had discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so it's 3-2, that we approve the 22,588. Fine, good. That's-
One more question. That means our project, they can't continue the project. Am I correct?
Didn't you hear Ed just get up there and say they can?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not gonna stiff them, and so if they go up 30 days without getting paid, it's not like, they'll be fine. We just need to get educated, the board and our staff and everyone on the same page. That's all we have to do, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay. We up to G1 now?
I believe so.
All right.
G1. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Casey Long with CH2M Hill. Here to talk about item G1. This is a little bit of a lengthy item. Try and go through it as best as I can for you. Item G1 is consisting of 3 project updates. One. Item G1 is consisting of 3 project updates that I've been doing consistently for the past 6 months, starting with the master plan, then the annex property, and Berth 1. We will be seeking approval of the master plan today. In the spirit of simplicity, I think I'm going to change it up a little. I'm going to skip the master plan and do the last 2 and then go to the master plan since it's a longer item. The annex property update, as reported last month for the annex property, the Port staff is awaiting confirmation of the City of Riviera Beach Planning and Zoning. We at one time had received a tentative April 13. However, we have been informed that we're being moved to the April 27th date. I am waiting for confirmation that we are definitely on that. As of now, I've not heard back, but April 27th was the last notification. The future land use language was approved in the February board meeting. I have included it in your agenda item just for refreshing in your memory. The land use application was submitted immediately following that board meeting the next day. Board language is here, and I'm not going to go through it unless you have questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Since you're not gonna be here, who's gonna be going to the city? Are we gonna be having a deal to hire you, or manning those, or how's that gonna?
Coming with me today is Jim Moore. He's a veteran of CH2M Hill, and Gene Jensen as well. He's done work here at Port of Palm Beach in the past. Jim Moore is going to be serving in my stead, and I'll allow Jim to address anything you'd like.
Okay, well, I'm just to see up to speed on this. I mean, this has been going on. You've been handling this for, over a year. So I just didn't know if he's coming in yesterday or today.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I am Jim Moore. I'm with CH2M. It's a bit bittersweet for me to be here. I've known Casey for all his career at CH2M Hill, and we're sad to see him leave. We're encouraged and excited I'm encouraged and excited for his new career path. But to let you know, Mr. Chairman and Commission, we recognize Casey's value added to this project, and CH2M is definitely making arrangements to retain his services to see this project through its completion.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Perfect. Takes care of that.
But this and the master plan.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Also, commissioners, in this past week, I managed to speak with Todd, their current boss, and he assured me that CH2M Hill will do what needs to be done in order to even hire on a part-time basis the necessary help in order to see these projects go through.
Good.
So we're in good shape. So currently we have here for upcoming events, April the 27th, the City of Riviera Beach Planning and Zoning meeting. That is almost confirmed, but borderline tentative. I apologize for not having the full confirmation. From there, we would look at May 2017 for a potential CRA meeting that is to be determined, and then also in May the City Councils, and that's all subject to us getting out of the zoning component. In closing, just if you have any questions on that item.
Now we have a card, Gerald Ward.
Good afternoon. Again, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. I would tell you that the issues of abandoning the right-of-way for the State Road 710 connector from State Road 5, US Highway 1 to Barack Obama Highway is not a dead issue, as was recited to me less than 2 days ago by your executive director. This issue is a commitment of the Port of Palm Beach. It is a truck access road issue. 13th Street, as reconstructed, was designated as no trucks. You have basically said everybody has to go north to State Road 708, Blue Heron Boulevard to go west, and to State Road A1A to go east if you're dealing in truck traffic. There is substantial truck traffic. We did design that intersection up there in this latest DOT fiasco for redoing US 1 that does take trucks so they can make a wide turn. There's no median if you look at it immediately south of Blue Heron Boulevard. But we need to have that is going to be an issue, and as was reported earlier, it was discussed last night at the City Council meeting that the interlocal agreement is another functionality document that should be considered. So we don't see this issue getting to conclusion immediately.
Okay, thank you. Casey, next item.
On the berth one, I have nothing new to report from last month, other than that the Coral Survey report is being tidied up. I was in correspondence with the consultant on that, and she's working on the finishing touches of the report. Upon receipt of that report, we would then submit that along with the submerged land lease survey and get the permitting activities moving forward again.
Cheryl, do you have something on this too? Marty, do you have anything? Marty? Okay, come on up.
Oh,
no,
let Mr. Ward talk.
Okay.
Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. Again, the discussions, where I put in a card on E11 and found that there are 2 proposals, but there has been no discussions with Riviera Beach in terms of, are these things accommodatable? But more importantly, Florida Inland Navigation District. The project is supposed to be outside the right-of-way, and I do have in the back of my car right now maps that would document that for me, but I don't have time to go through the details. But all of these issues need to have coordination before you go down the road, and it just doesn't seem to be happening.
Okay, next item.
And back to item A, thank you for letting me do the other ones first. The master plan update, you should have received in your board book about 105 pages of information. I want to try and simplify it a little bit because it has a lot of redundancy to it. The most important component of the master plan update is the section A. And that's the first section in there, and it shows the strike-throughs, the underlines, and the changes since the 2012 adoption. And then subsequent, I provided yellow and blue highlights for language since the last time you saw it in December. All of that language has been replicated in sections 5 and 6. 6 and 7. All those are doing is rearranging and reordering the numbering system to put a little bit more structure to the document. So all of the language that you saw in 1 was replicated in sections 6 and 7. As it relates to the language, I believe all of you have had a chance to review it. Secondly, we also provided the, sorry, before I get into that, as we reported last month, we submitted all of this to the various mayors of town of Palm Beach, city of West Palm Beach Shore. We've had meetings with various people. Some have not responded, others have. We've had some stakeholders and some public, people from the public submit letters, Mr. Ward, Keith Beatty from Save Our Inlet, as well as Lisa Inderland, and we've also responded to those comments and also addressed some of their comments within this latest update. Since the last board meeting, Port staff has had meetings with citizens. We've met with Mr. Ward, Mr. Beatty. We've met with various leaders within the different townships and cities. As of now, we're looking for an adoption today of this master plan update based upon the information and the meetings and items we've discussed individually. I would like to point out in these pages, we did address the project description for the harbor and the inlet and the channel to include revised, refreshed language. As you've seen, change it from we're going to do a study to studies have been done and we're going to continue to study, but also to give it a more up-to-date reflection based upon board action last month. So that's what's in there. I'm here to answer questions. I don't know that I can really go through all 100 pages one by one.
No, we don't need that. We go, I mean, we've been doing this for what, a year now? And over and over, so we're pretty knowledgeable. Go ahead.
Casey, I just wanted to thank you. The first time we had it, and when it came back and it didn't have, all of my highlighting, my notes were all gone, I panicked, and the way you did this, the highlighting, the changes, and the graphs, I just want to really thank you. It made it, I think you incorporated all the changes we asked for, and it made it so easy to go back and forth, and I just wanted to compliment you on that. It was wonderful.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
One more comment. I just want to say, Mr. Long, you're a class act, and I'm going to miss you.
Thank you very
Marty,
much.
do you have something?
One item is that I did add the capital improvements item in here that wasn't.
Martin Murphy, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My address is 1124 Avenue C, next door. My only comment is it's presented as an update, and it goes to you guys for approval, and I heard what you say, you've heard it enough. But there was one thing that I found out about the Casey just reported. The public comments have all been answered, and none of that has been provided. I guess you guys got the comments, but public doesn't have the comments. The other thing is there's nobody from the working waterfront in Riviera Beach, which is our neighbor to the north to Blue Heron Bridge, have been involved. I think there's been one meeting with Lockheed Martin, maybe a meeting with Bridlevich. Those kind of things have just skipped over us, which your neighbor next door.
But I think we've had, how many public meetings have we had? I mean, we've had, Casey approximately, I mean, go ahead, I mean, I know that.
There's been no workshop though for the city of Riviera Beach neighborhood.
Casey, how many?
We had two public meetings, one, I can't remember the date, I apologize, but they were both in 2016 near the end, in consecutive months. One was lightly attended, and then the second one had 4 or 5 individuals that attended from different agencies, or different entities. Mr. Ward and Mr. Murphy were present, as well as Lisa Interlandi, and I can't remember the other gentleman in the second one. We did not have large quantities of people.
Yeah, I mean,
the
you know, it's unfortunate that most of the things that we do at the port, we don't get a whole lot of community involvement, no matter whether it's the master plan or whatever. So, I mean, we can't really, you know, beg our neighbors to come to these things, and they don't really have that much. Unfortunate, you do, which we appreciate, but a lot of the other people, you know, we don't get a lot of response. Right?
And Mr. Murphy, along those lines, you are an honored member and a senior member of that community. And if there's something, as is Mr. Ward, and we all know that, and if there's something there that you believe needs to be flagged, you've always been quick to flag it in a respectful manner. You've reminded us about it more than once or twice or 3 times. And I'm sure you go back to you're part of the working waterfront. You're a key component. So you being here provides us comfort.
Yeah, but I disagree with a lot of the stuff as it's presented.
And you have addressed that with us, but I'm speaking.
Not really.
Okay.
Wayne. You know, the annexation thing is another issue. That was an issue 25 years ago.
You've talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, no,
so you have.
I've talked about it back to 1992.
But my point is, the working waterfront and our neighbor to the north, being you, have been involved, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, but we're still suffering because we have to do our trucking. You and I have talked about it. It's a trucking route that allows to come in Blue Heron because you can't turn south.
I'm addressing your stated concerns about the working waterfront and not being knowledgeable. Whether or not you agree with every item in there is a different story, and I respect that. But I'm suggesting that you and other members of the working waterfront are aware and have been involved. You have been engaged. You may not have everything you want, and I understand that. But there has been a dialogue. You are aware. Other members have been aware.
I disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I came today. You know, I didn't know that you all had that feeling that I have been involved. The only way I've been involved is reading your agendas that are coming up and come to the meetings.
That are public.
That are public.
Mr. Ward's been involved. You've sat down with me over breakfast over some of these items.
Many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, many times. You know, Berth 1's the same way. I mentioned that earlier under the other item. What's going to happen? What is proposed for Berth 1? I mean, it's just a black line on the master plan.
And we requested proposals. I don't believe we have a definitive. We have asked for proposals. We're waiting for proposals, and in a public forum, we'll open them up and we'll talk about them.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Manuel, could we make sure that the public comments on the master plan and our responses are both on our website, so anyone that wants to see.
Yes.
The only thing I would say about our responses is they were a little late. I know it's been a little chaotic the last few weeks, but they were a little late. Thank you.
Gerald Ford, did you have a brief comment?
I have a card in on the first item, which is the master plan approval of language. I would suggest that you have no way to approve the language today, but I'll start out with the fact that less than 2 days ago prior to this meeting, I received at 4:44, the day before yesterday, a 5-page response to my comments of 8 December, 4 pages, 2016. I do know that Mr. Beatty also I happened to talk to him, got a response to his, and I don't know whether Lisa, in my meeting with the staff, I strongly suggested that respond, because she's got a much bigger organization than any of us in Palm Beach or in Riviera Beach. The problem is really with the law. 163.3178 sub 2K, 3, 4, 5, and 6 Florida statutes are the principal directly on point with the port required to do a comprehensive plan element, in this case, because you're in more than one city or municipality with Palm Beach County. And I see no evidence that your lawyer has ever reviewed this and is certifying to you today that this document meets his analysis and criteria. You just don't close the loop to show that that has been done. So you need to get the details, so as you've seen today, there's a lot of things falling through the cracks. One of the more important things in my letter is that you need to get started, because you're kicking the can down the road with almost all of the comments in this amazing document that I received day before yesterday. 4.5 months later and just 2 days prior. I'll just dissect that and try and respond at a future date. But you made comment that it costs a lot of money to do a full comprehensive plan. Last night, the city of Riviera Beach had on their agenda less than $25,000 within the pen authority of the city manager to initiate a complete EAR, evaluation and appraisal report, for their comprehensive
All
plan.
right, thank you. Your time's up. Thank you
Well,
very much.
Well,
Appreciate
okay,
it.
you don't have authority to proceed because you don't
Okay.
have the
Thank
data
you.
and the analysis
Okay,
to do
thank-
that today.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adopt our final? Go ahead.
I move that we approve the latest version of the master plan as presented in our agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Second, any further discussion?
I have a question. If Gerald's concerns are accurate, at some point, once somebody through this other process, who would tell us that, no, you need more data or something?
Casey?
Well, the process goes to the county. The county would absorb this into their comprehensive
But
plan.
the county absorbs it, but does the county?
They review the document, and they have reviewed the document with respect to the changes, but then it also goes to the state level for a state review.
And they would kick it back if it was inadequate or?
In years past, and I'm talking 5-6 years ago, yes, there was a more detailed thing. I cannot speak, I apologize, to whether or not that is as detailed of a review in the current stat.
But ultimately, the state will accept it?
Because the state has to ultimately accept this as part of their comp plan as well.
We've done this before. So. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, all opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, before Casey sits, symbolically, this was his last action while representing the CHLML. I've had the pleasure now of working with Casey for the last 8.5 years. I'm really, really sorry to see him go. He was always a Johnny on the spot. You call him no matter what time of the day, Casey would be there. Casey's favorite, and in case nobody knows this, Casey's favorite restaurant is Bud's. And it gives you a lot of fried food, and like you said, lots of fried food. So anytime there's a planning board zone meeting, that's when we end up eating lots of fried food. But anyway, I just wanted to get on the record saying thank you, Casey, very much.
Well, he's still gonna be around, so
he
it's
is.
not like we're not gonna see him.
He is, but you never know.
All right.
Thank you.
I do want to take 10 seconds. Casey, I've enjoyed working with you professionally. You are a gentleman. You are a great professional. You've served the port very well. You served G.M. Jensen very well. You had a full head of hair. You've served CH2 Hill very well. CH2 Hill very well, and the port. We thank you very much. Job well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say before the comments are public, but I appreciate the opportunity just to serve you guys for the 20 years that I have. It's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot. and I feel like I've gotten a chance to work with good people over the years. So thank you everybody for that. And hopefully I will be back, as Jim reported, for at least the master plan.
And Casey, I want to add thank you to, and I'm sure you'll be here. I doubt that you're really going that far, but I'm sure. And Dave, and I'd also like to point out to my esteemed colleague that you're a big Gator. And on September 2nd, we will have our way with Michigan.
All right, let's move to G2.
Commissioners, I'll introduce our two staff members. You may remember that 22 months ago, we started this process of negotiating with Tropical Shipping. Could have had two babies by this sense. Finally, we do see have come to a very positive agreement, and this is what our two staff members will be presenting. That would be Tara, of course, Jared Fiswera, and Paul Zielinski. So please, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring them up so they can make their presentation. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Almira. Well, I'm very happy to be here, be a part of this negotiating team to bring this agreement before the board this evening, and to end the meeting on a high note. So before you may have seen the term sheet, and the reason we gave you the term sheet showing you a red line is so that you can see that there were not a lot of material changes in the agreement itself. The rates didn't change. Basically, a lot of the agreement was just trying to detail things like change orders and help if the bids came in over a certain amount, things like that. It was really the details. So the term sheet you approved on at the August board meeting in 2016, and you have the red line before you. The most significant change to that term sheet was the deadline for us to submit permits, and it was extended from April 2018 to June 2018. Additional terms in the agreement, just for clarification, we have defined each party's responsibility in project bids that exceed $4 million, and that's the basic bid cost. We've also indicated what would occur up to $4.8 million and anything over $5.3 million, and at that point, either party could elect to move on with the project or decline to do so. Paul will get into the change orders a little bit further in the presentation. We agreed to spend the next 120 days negotiating another amendment to modify the terms of the current berthing agreement with Tropical Shipping. We've also clearly delineated the project milestones, timelines, deliverables, and the related financial implications to each party.
Okay, somebody did.
Thank you. You can see in the timeline, the first item is the approval which we are asking for today, which would basically start the clock on this project. Next, we would come to you next month with the design work order. And then by June 30th of 2018, that is the date in which the port will need to have the permits submitted to the city for the project. We've met with our engineer and our contract engineers, and we feel that this project is doable within that timeline. We need to receive the permit back issued to the port by December 31st, 2018. And then we have a substantial completion target date of March 31st, 2020, with a completion deadline of September 30th, 2020. Unlike agreements in the past, which have been 5-year increments for Tropical and having to negotiate those items every 5 years, we're happy to present to you a 10-year agreement with 4 5-year options. This agreement establishes the fixed annual increases in cargo and land rates, and it also raises the minimum tonnage guarantee by 170,000 tons. It guarantees the port an additional 50% increase in dockage revenue over a period of time. It also leases a new cargo area at market rates. Tropical also in this agreement is given the first right to negotiate on 2 parcels. One is our current cruise parking parcel, should it become available, and the second is the FDOT Annex property, should it become available. As I mentioned earlier, there is a reservation fee and a capital contribution fee, both $500,000 each. Those are time specific, that are paid to the port from Tropical Shipping, and Paul will get into that in his financial presentation. And I already went over the fact that we would be negotiating the berthing agreement in the next 120 days. So next, Paul will present you with the investment scenarios.
I don't want to thank you, Jerry.
Sure.
Before you leave this sheet, the last bullet point commits the Port of Tropical to negotiations brought for the berthing of a cruise vessel every day. And that sort of ties with the right of first negotiation on the additional 2 parcels.
Could be.
Could be. Are there any parameters or simply negotiations?
It's simply at this point negotiations for the next 120 days. The port's desire is to open the berthing agreement to have the opportunity to bring in a second cruise ship on off days into berth 2 if that opportunity presents itself.
And there's a 120-day window to do that?
Yes, from today.
After this, if this is approved, as it is, day 121, if that has not proved fruitful, what happens to the Tropical's first rate negotiation on the 2 additional?
The right of first negotiation will remain in the agreement. That right has nothing to do with the 120-day negotiation. That parcel will be a part of that negotiation, and it may no longer be the right to negotiate. It may be under different parameters, but that has to be negotiated.
Okay.
And so now I'll ask Paul to go over the investment scenarios of the project and overall financial impact in the agreement.
Thank you. Commissioners, I am very comfortable that the agreement that's being presented to you meets the financial criteria that we should have with respect to taking down the MOB. It is beneficial. Let me explain how I see that. The first part of the negotiations was we don't know what the bids are going to come in at, and Tropical is a partner in this. So what we've established is up to $4 million, which is what we've been talking about, assuming FPART participation for 50%, Tropical and the port will split it 50-50, and that's the $1 million that's in here via reservation fee and capital fees. The next $800,000, if the original bid comes in at $4.8 million, again, we would split 50-50. However, if it went over $4.8 million, Tropical, at that point in time, when these bids come in, has the right to say to the port, we're not interested. If that's the case, then the port can make its decision whether it wants to approve it alone or lease the building. Tropical has the option of backing out. The next 500,000, I'm sorry, up to 5.3, we would split, if they decide to go forward, we split 50-50. Over 5.3 million, the port has the opportunity to say it's getting too rich, we don't want to do it. Overall, our cash outlay for the project would be somewhere between $1 million if it's at 4. If we hit 5.3, it's $1,330,000. Change orders, each party is responsible to fully fund the net cost of a change order at their request. In other words, if it's something that we want that is of no benefit to Tropical, we pay the 50%. If they want something that is unique to them, then they'll pay the 50%.
What if it's site, Mr. Chairman? What if it's site required because of unknown site conditions?
50-50. And if it has to be, if project overruns are 50-50 up to a cost of $500,000 in overruns, and that would be split 50-50. Over 500,000, it's split between ourselves and FDOT only. And the process behind that is if we're controlling the contractor, we're controlling who the bid is awarded to, and it is being done on our property. So at some point, it's our responsibility. The financial terms, these are all guaranteed. Wharfage increases by 11.5% by the end of the agreement. Dockage goes into a fixed amount each and every month of $67,400, at which point those berths are Tropicals and they can bring the ships in as long as they want. It stays at, and that comes out to about $809,000 a year. For each of the first 5 years, we've held it flat, and then there'll be increases in years 6 through 10. Tropical is increasing its tonnage guarantee to 1,420,000 tons by the 5th year of the agreement, and that's being held constant. And the reason it's being held constant at that point, the assumption is that the land that they will have at that time will be sufficed. The MOB laydown area, which is what this property is being called, will be leased to them at $1.75 a square foot in year 1, $2 a square foot in year 2, and in years 3 through 8, there's escalation clauses built in. What's referred to as the Alta land leases, which is in essence all of their other properties, will have a 6% increase in year 1, and beyond that, a built-in increase each and every year. And they are currently in the MOC for $20 a square foot, and that has escalation clauses. There are tenants now. Unlike past agreements, these rates have been established and identified for each and every one of the 10 years. There is no link to CPI, and it's simply, these are your rates. On the renewal periods, we're open to negotiations for each of the renewal periods, as we should be, because 10 years would have elapsed. The summary of the financial terms is the port's requirement for the project will be somewhere between $1 million and $1.3 million, depending on whether it comes in the total the cost at $4 million or $5.3 million. I want to remind you that we have a write-off on the building that's going to hit our bottom line of $1 million, and right now it looks like through GAAP we have to do that in 2018. Just don't want to lose sight of that. Non-cash just simply has to be done. Looking at the minimum guaranteed impact from the agreement, annual incremental revenue in year 1 is $645,000, and after the end of the 10-year agreement, it's about $1.4 million. Our cash flow from the term of the contract will be somewhere between $12.2 and $12.5 for the 10-year period. And our operating income is about $11.2 million. That's after the write-off and after depreciation. With that said, I'd ask you if you have any questions. Go ahead, Peter.
I don't really have any questions. I wanted to thank you and Jura. I think you did a marvelous job. I want to thank you for getting up very early in the morning that morning to go over it with me. And I also want you thank you for changing the dashes to pluses so that we could understand it. I think you did an excellent job. And I'd just like to compliment both of you. Thank you.
Paul, have we had anyone come in and give us a estimate on knocking down the building and carting it away? So do we have some idea? I think we did that a lot.
FDOT. FDOT came in.
Oh, okay.
They came in, I think, about 3.4. Tom's estimate was about 3.8, but that was a couple of years ago.
Right.
So we have been calling it a $4 million project.
Right.
Hopefully it'll be less.
Right.
But both parties wanted to have some ideas if it went over that,
Right.
what were our rights.
Right, so at least we've done our due diligence and we know. Very good, all right, so do we have a motion?
May I,
Go ahead.
before I ask you to approve, I would like to take a minute to thank some people. I want to thank Tropical's negotiating team, Doug Voigt, Glenn Kreisner, and Ed Severino. They never failed to represent Tropical's interest. They did so professionally, and I want to compliment them. They recognized that compromise was the only path to mutual success. The second is I would like to acknowledge the fourth member of our team, Greg Picken. Greg not only was diligent in protecting the port's legal position throughout the 22 months of negotiation, but more often than not, provided valuable perspective when business issues were discussed among team members. And I want to thank Greg. Now, I would like to respectfully ask that the board approve the agreement and authorize Executive Director to sign the agreement on your behalf.
All right, Gerald Ward, let me ask one question to Peggy. On this minutes, I mean, Mr. Ward, I have nothing against him, but he could be speaking for every item and take up hours. Does the county have a different, Pete would know that. How does that work there? Because we're gonna adopt probably the same.
If someone speaks on consent items at the county, they're giving 3 minutes, no matter how many consent items they want to speak on. On items on the regular agenda, they're giving 3 minutes on any regular agenda item.
Okay, all right, good. All right, Gerald.
Afternoon again, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. It was interesting, at least you acknowledged that the city of Riviera Beach has to issue a permit for this project. At this point in time, there's been no communication about overall port impacts of tearing down a 4-story building of well less than a half a century old, and how it's going to affect the overall usage of the property of the port that's in that area. So somewhere along the line, again, you need better coordination, and I'll speak to that under the next item also.
All right, do you have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agreement.
Been Waldron, second by Peyton. Any other discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 5-0.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. New business, do we have anything on that?
Commissioner, if I may, I'd like to bring up Doug Voigt from Tropical. He would like to address.
Okay, great.
Doug?
Good evening, Doug Voigt, Tropical Shipping, AVP of Operations and Equipment. We would just like to thank the port, and this really, we had a really good negotiation. This really just allows us to continue to grow here in the Port of Palm Beach, have some, be able to continue to have all of our vessels call Port of Palm Beach, and provide future growth and revenue for the port. And I really, it's been a long journey, and I picked up kind of in the middle of it, and I think it's a mutual benefit for both groups. So
Great.
really
Thank
appreciate
you for
it.
your participation, and I know we've been working on this for, it seems like forever, but it's finally done, and we look
Yeah,
forward
we
to
really
all
appreciate it.
the
Thank you.
added business. Great, okay. Anything else, Manny, any other new business?
I don't have anything else.
Okay, Mary, please come up. Please come up. We've been waiting for you.
Good afternoon to the chair and the extending commissioners and everyone in their respective places. I attended FDOT meeting last month, and it was in reference to the 45th Street corridor. And I also spoke with the vice president. The meeting was well attended, and it was very fluent with input as to where we are on that interchangeable. It would be a diamond highway overpass with 4 lanes intersecting, okay? I, being the person, I asked, would that impede the traffic for 710 or MLK? I was directly told no. They had 3 alternatives on their board, and they eliminated from Congress to 710. They do not need that. I request for it to be in writing. I also conversed that bite with my city manager as well. And to the question of the Sky Pass, for now, the question was asked whether or not you all will go and proceed in doing that. You replied, these are, the State Road 710 connector was ruled by FDOT, the MPO, and FEC to be financially infeasible for manufacturers. These are all outside of the port's control, and its removal does not impact the port's current operation. So in essence, you also said, in the short term, and even in the mid-range years to come, the port does not have the need for this roadway, but it is not opposed to it. I like that word, opposed to it. That would be, it continues to support the transportation leadership, both at the state level as well as locally. Our question here would be, as representatives for the area, whoever represents the whole district here, we need more communication. I totally agree with Marty Murphy, even though he sits on that water advisory board, but the residents are not really connected to the vital information that the port is impeding within the communities. Now, it was made mention that I know you try to get it out, but perhaps a better job needs to be done, because you have some residents that are here today, and as well as myself, I'm always involved in things, but your residents need to be informed. I also agree that the comprehensive plan on last night, we did not get to that. So I need to let you all know, so perhaps that will be in our next upcoming meeting in May. So.
Well, we appreciate you attending our meetings, and if you can get more people involved, that would be great. So we appreciate it, though, really.
Can I say one thing
Sure.
to Mr. Casey Long? Congratulations, much happiness to you and all of your endeavors. You all have come to know me, and I'm still the hat wearing lady here.
Yeah.
So thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Branham?
Yes.
I just like to, you said one thing that was very profound. You said, my city commissioner, it's also your executive director.
Guess what?
They're both
Everyone who's responsible, we will hold that accountability, just
But
like I challenged my commissioner.
Does the new city manager understand that he's your city manager?
Yes, he does, and
Okay.
we are pleased with him, and he will work in conjunction with you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Gerald Ward, to wrap things up.
Oh, you still got Commissioner.
You've got 3 minutes.
The name is Gerald M. Ward, 2135 Broadway, for the record. 2 items. We let it go last month because the new engineer was the new engineer, and he addressed in his report solely berth 17. Unfortunately, this month it came back the same way. The written report and the presentation were berth 17. The job of staff engineer at this port is much bigger than that, and the previous occupant had a comprehensive report which he made very simple, so he didn't have to work hard at it, but he covered everything that supposed to be done. So that needs to be done. Since you also eliminated another report, House Bill 737 went to governmental accounting committee yesterday, and in a 4-hour meeting at 10:30, Representative Hagar didn't show, and so a committee member took the bill and presented it, and it did pass out and has been referred to the calendar today. So you still do need to find out what your high-priced lobbyist is doing. I don't see why you're eliminating more and more information. You just heard Mrs. Graham say communication is mandatory and needed. So.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners have anything? Nothing here. Anything?
I just want to say, bring up something before, Mr. Mayor. We mentioned last year that I know that we've had staff to, no one quit the Port of Palm Beach, it doesn't happen, but we've had staff to leave because of retirement. And last year we brought to the board that we would like for you to start looking at bringing on new young blood as far as to fill these positions, so when we get in a tight and someone decides to retire or even go on maternity leave and not choose to come back, I thought that maybe we would have 2 or 3 young people right out of college that's learning the port and that will be here, and we were hoping that maybe that could happen. And you know, so I'm just bringing it back up and throwing it out there. And in our budget and everything, we need to go on and do this, because there's no way that someone leaves the port and we're scrambling trying to give all the other staff people the work, because it doesn't work that way. Because if you have 5 people working and you lose 3, for example, and you're going to give the 2 people all the other work the 3 people had, the port is going to be in trouble. And I can see us getting in a ditch if we don't start trying to look at young folks, bringing them in, training them so they can replace some of the people that are leaving. And I hope that we're not looking at our budget and the port suffer by us not hiring people.
Catherine, you have anything? Good. Okay. Our next meeting is 18th, 4 o'clock. Okay, we're adjourned.